Welcome to the Running Channel podcast with me, Sarah Hartley, Andy Baddeley and Rick Kelsey. And today on the podcast, we're taking a deep dive into the Paris 2024 Paralympic Games. We're going to be covering the latest news, plus unpacking the various athlete classifications.
Yeah, we've already been spoiled by the Olympic Games this summer, and today we're going to be learning about which sports are in the Paralympics, but not in the Olympics.
Right, let's get into it. And as always, we'll also be answering your questions.
Okay, so catch up first. Rick, how have you been?
Yeah, I ran some Strava art yesterday. I'm extremely sore. Then I played tennis. I've got to say, when this video is basically draw your face, it's coming out very soon. And you will not be able to know who has drawn which picture. I had to draw my own face. I went up to a field in North London. Yes, we have them.
Excellent.
They're hilly though.
A hilly field.
A hilly field.
Did you stop and look at it for a little bit before you carried on running?
So my
and was it a pink field?
It was a beautiful field in North London.
I thought it had to be pink.
My tactic was, I thought if I stop my watch, it will mean that I can go and draw an eye and put the iris in the middle of the eye. But actually, when I looked at the map, it still drew the line. What's going on with that?
It has to be one continuous trace.
But how does it know which way I walked if I've stopped it?
Because it just draws point to point.
Yeah.
So just draw a straight line.
A straight line between the 2 points where you stopped and then
That's
started
why.
your watch
Have you
again.
ever seen it where someone's like finished a run and then clearly has cycled home and then has been like, oh, forgot to pause my watch, started it, stopped it, and then you just get this like massive line like through rivers across London.
Hang on. What? So you can't draw an island with Strava art? It's impossible.
Yes.
What do you mean?
This is so well.
You can't draw an eye and you can't draw the pupil in the middle of the eye.
I was trying to do the iris and the pupil. Yeah,
well, you really got into this.
Yeah.
Did you? Was your skin really smooth on your drawing, or were you wearing a face mask?
I had so much fun.
Did you draw the little pot of caviar face cream to the side?
Thinking,
Oh, very good.
Did you?
Honestly, I was dreading this. Warm. I had to play tennis afterwards. Dreading doing this.
You just hate running.
Yeah.
Like,
but
why are you here?
I spent 1 kilometre on every feature on my face.
What does that say about what you think about your own
All I can
face?
say is some of the comments, I cannot wait for this to come out, but some of the comments is basically, I had 3 different people writing on Strava. Now I've figured out how to read the comments.
Yeah.
Who said, variations of this line, is this Andy when he had hair?
Brilliant.
We also had a great comment last week.
Oh, I hate you all.
It was someone. So we have at work, we have this channel called Lovely Feedback. And it's where if someone spots something really nice that one of you have said, they pop it in there. And my favourite one got posted this week where someone had commented on the podcast saying, wow, Sarah, your hair looks so nice. I was starting to wonder whether that's a thing amongst runners. And then I remembered Andy.
That was in the nice comments book.
So
I
I said to the person that had put it in the Running Channel team, I was like, "What? Why is this in the lovely feedback?"
It's lovely. It's lovely feedback for me.
Yeah, well, that's true. And I was just thinking, you said you had to do 1 kilometre for every feature of your face.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thankfully, you were doing this post Botox, because otherwise you'd have been out there for all day.
Or just drawing
it was
the
just
lines
smooth lines.
in.
Yeah. Didn't have to double up on anything.
Sarah's hinted that she has something to admit to us today, because didn't you go to your first ever London Run Club last night?
Yeah, I did.
As in non-running channel run club.
Yeah. So for ages, I've been like, I should really go down to one. There are so many run clubs in London, and they all look amazing. I went to my first one.
Yeah.
Royally embarrassed myself.
How?
So we met. Did the introductions. I was there with a few mates.
Yeah.
We start running, and I feel like autumn is coming. It was quite dark. We started at 7:30.
Yes.
So the street lights were on. We set off, and it was described as groovy pace.
I saw your route and your pace.
Yeah.
Groovy pace.
Yeah. So that's how they describe the pace, and it works out as an average of 5:40.
Okay.
But when they said 5:40, I was like, great, okay, we're going 5:40, which for me is quite comfortable. But then we set off at like 5:15, and I was like, oh, okay, off we go. Stacked it on a curb.
Oh no.
Yeah. And not only, like, if you can think of all of the different ways that you could fall over amongst a brand new set of people and like recover it and be all right.
You couldn't style this one out.
A bit of a trip, recover it, fine. Like, oh, funny. No, this was I stacked it. I almost recovered myself. Then I caught my foot on another bit of the pavement and then went down on one knee and then fully like hands on the floor, face into the curb. Everyone had to stop behind me because I was relatively at the front.
And then did you hear the mutters going, right, is that Sarah from the running club?
I was literally like, and also the worst bit, we were 600 metres into a 10k run.
Oh no.
Okay, well,
so
I want you to
bad.
rank in order these 3 embarrassing moments for yourself.
Right, okay,
So,
that one.
At the run club.
Yeah.
When you met Philly Bowden for the first time.
What happened?
So Philly Bowden has been a standing guest for me on this podcast.
Yes.
She's a fantastic athlete in her own right. But the first time that Sarah met her, she properly fangirled and was like,
What, more than Harry Judd?
oh, so that was going to be
Is
number
that
3.
number
Number
3?
3 was an hour's
Philly
worth of...
Bowden, bless her. I just went in and started asking her all of these questions, and we were in like the athlete / VIP bit of like a section, and she was like, "Sorry, who are you?"
Because you haven't ever introduced yourself.
You know, which perfectly fine question, because I was like, no, I literally haven't said
Was
who I
this
am.
after or before she stood in for Andy?
It was before. Thank you very much.
no, they're friends
but yeah,
now.
Harry
Yeah,
Judd.
yeah.
I honestly think that the falling over most embarrassing thing. But you know
Really?
what? Anyone listening to this who's scared to
Yeah.
go to a run club, I've done it. I've done the embarrassing thing. Everyone
Yeah.
was lovely
Well,
about
everyone should
it.
just go to Run Club with you and
Yeah.
know that you will absorb their humiliation for them.
I know. And now I'm doing this half marathon race this weekend, and I'm literally like, you see the bruise on my hand.
Oh gosh.
I know.
Yeah.
And it's all down my leg as well.
I'm sorry to hear that, Sarah.
So embarrassing.
Andy,
Yeah.
you okay? You've been camping?
I have been camping. I've been at a festival, and I want to say a big shout out to all the lovely podcast listeners who found me at Big Festival.
No way.
Yeah, and came up to me and had a few chats. To
What do they
This
say?
sounds
What do they
way
say?
too cool
What's their
for you.
inline?
Lots of
Hey,
different
man,
things.
we're at a festival.
I wish I'd got the lady's name because I think after she'd said this to me, she was a little bit mortified. But I was with the kids. We were quite far forward watching a band. It might have been Circa Waves. Can't remember.
Yeah.
On the main stage, and we were quite close to the front. And after a few minutes, the
Right
lady
in the
turned
mosh
around
pit.
and was like asked, "Oh, it's Andy, isn't it?" Or
Yeah.
something to that effect. And she said, "Oh, I love the podcast," which is a really lovely thing to
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
My kids then start laughing because they think it's hilarious that people might meet me and it's a random place. But then I think this lovely lady then saw her friends looking at her a bit weird and then was like, "Oh yeah, probably this is weird," and then just turned around and kept dancing again. So thank you, because they made my day.
I love how people approach Andy because, it's not double tap on the shoulder. Hi, are you Andy Baddeley, the double Great British Olympic runner? No, it's, hi, are you Andy, the guy who gets the piss taken out of by Rick and Sarah?
Yeah, 100%. I was buying...
Every single time it happens, one person from the team will be like, "Do you think you're more famous now than when you were a double Olympian?"
The answer
You're
I
like,
think is, well, more people
yeah?
want to talk to me now. Maybe I think I'm more likable now than when maybe I wasn't very likable.
I'll tell you who else is likeable. Rose Harvey. She came in last week while you were away.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have not listened to the show, it came out a couple of days ago. She was lovely, wasn't she, Sarah? You know what blew my mind a little bit, kind of behind the scenes stuff? How relaxed she is. She was basically getting married the week after we did the recording, so now, essentially. And she hadn't got the rings, and we said to her, "Well, what are you doing next?" She goes, "Oh, I might just go and get a wedding ring."
Yeah, she was very calm. Great person to have in a
And
crisis.
with a broken leg, and had that incredible experience.
So calm.
At the Olympics. So, yeah, I just to finish off, I suppose, my catch-up, like, I'm really struggling with my running at the moment. I found it very difficult in Paris when it was so hot. Had a little niggle while I was out there, then came back, and then had that classic, like, I almost felt like I'd felt after running the Olympics. Had that kind of real down. And then because we'd been so on for, like, that whole period, I just picked up like some kind of illness. Then camping has not helped me recover. So yeah, I'm battling a little bit.
What do you mean lying on the floor is a great way to prep for it?
Yeah.
So there's not long. I think next week's episode we're going to delve into half marathons because all of us are training for the same distance at the moment.
Yeah.
Rick slightly reluctantly, Andy also slightly reluctantly, but I'm running my half marathon this weekend as this comes out. Everyone, wish me luck.
Yeah,
It's
good luck,
gonna
Sarah.
go.
And then mine's supposed to be the following weekend, although after running, I did a video with Jess from the running channel the other day, and that has really knocked my confidence and left me feeling a bit sore. So
it's funny. It was supposed to boost her confidence, and you were just supposed to ride it out.
Well, I think I gave her all of my confidence. She absorbed it all like a sponge, so she's feeling great. And I'm empty.
I think you'll smash it. I think you need to go out and do one of those like confident boost sessions.
I do. I just need to get my mojo and my energy back. I'm just feeling wiped out after like a tough summer, because we spent so long building up to the Olympics. But speaking of the Olympics, now Paris is hosting something of an equal, we hope, scale, the Paralympic Games, Paris 2024.
Yeah, it's so cool to watch. It felt like Paris recovered. Paris went into hibernation for a few weeks to kind of recover after the Olympics, and now, bam, it's come back to life. Opening ceremony, Paralympic Games, looks amazing.
Yeah, and I was listening to what all the athletes are saying. We were obviously watching parts of the opening ceremony, and Johnny Peacock, who sped to Paralympic gold in 2012, when I think he was only 18 or 19. He ran London, Rio, Tokyo, and this is his fourth Games.
Yeah.
But he was saying it was very strange with Tokyo. There's no crowds. Rio, there were some funding issues and so on, I think, around the Paralympics. So he feels like this is the first kind of proper Paralympics, and he's hoping that since London 2012.
That's interesting.
And that he's been around the city in Paris, seen like Paralympians on billboards, the noise, the opening ceremony. He says like this feels like the same scale as London, which at that point I think everyone said was kind of a new bar that had been set for the Paralympic Games. The global exposure, the interest that the public took, the fact that there were sold out stadiums, all that sort of stuff is really exciting.
So it's the first time that France has hosted a Summer Paralympics. 4,400 athletes, 168 countries set to take part in 22 Paralympic sports, and there's 549 gold medals in Paris. And you know what I thought was nice about the consistency from the Olympics to the Paralympic Games? Oh, Champs-Élysées.
Oh no, we're bringing this back.
Champs-Élysées.
This is not how it sounds.
Vive la France, sous la pluie, à midi, oh, Champs-Élysées.
That's actually a pretty good rendition.
Well, the good news is we won't get done for copyright. That sounds nothing like the
we
original.
need to do my Google game to see what kind of percentage match Rick would get on the on Google's song matching tool.
I don't think it would be very high.
No, probably not high.
Oh, we'll test that later.
Seriously though, some of the details around Paralympics, I think you kind of watch it, but not often do people kind of explain how it all works, not just compared to the Olympics, but as a Games and how it all gets put together. Like things like the wheelchair basketball, it's 3.05 meters from the ground, which is exactly the same as the Olympic Games.
I assume because of from an accessibility perspective and as a sport's evolved, like the courts have been the same around the world. You can just turn up at any regular basketball court and then you play the same. But in terms of if you stand underneath the basketball hoop, it's high.
It's so high.
Over 3 meters is high. So imagine doing that sitting down. Like that's actually quite hard. I'm a bit weak. I don't know if I could throw the ball that high from sitting down.
Yeah, the arm strength is incredible.
2 Paralympic disciplines that do not have an Olympic counterpart. They're called goalball and boccia. Is it boccia or boccia?
Boccia, I think.
Boccia, which we had a little look at before we started recording.
Yeah, it's actually happening right now.
Yeah.
Some of the matches are being
So
played.
kind of explain that, Andy, boccia.
Well, it's a little bit like, so it's played seated from wheelchairs. My understanding is it's played by athletes in the cerebral palsy classification. And also it's like a cross between kind of crown green bowls and petanque or bocce that you might have seen played particularly on the continent, where you're throwing balls to get as close to a white marker as possible, another white ball. So yeah, that's really interesting.
And do you guys kind of, when you've watched the Paralympics before and you've kind of heard about the classifications and how people are put into different groups in the Paralympics, it's quite easy for it to go over your head, isn't it?
Yeah. What I didn't realise as well is that there's a kind of classification process. So before these athletes have even arrived at the Games, they've had to kind of go through a series of tests or kind of different protocols and different assessments in order to make sure that they're in the right category and that they're eligible for the right category as well. So that's what we wanted to go through, because if you are excited to put the TV back on and watch the athletics, I always want to know the different kind of classifications because there are kind of multiple different, I guess, like world records at stake for 100 meters, 200 and like what all of those different classifications are. So We're going to go into it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a stand. From my understanding, there's not actually a single classification system that applies across kind of all sports, because every discipline is slightly different. So athletics will have its own for the track and field.
But that's what, because I've heard for years, it's like you're in the T something category.
Yeah.
So
but did you know what that stands for?
It's track.
I have watched this for so long and did not make that connection. And the F, field.
Yeah. So should we go through them? So
your mind's seemed blown by the alphabet.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I was just like, right, T. I just thought it was
you just accept it. And I think it's one of the things where I'd always known it, but I'd forgotten.
So 11 to 13 is for vision impairment, if you ever hear that on the TV. If you're
so that would show up as like T 11 to 13 or F 11 to 13.
20 is intellectual impairment, and then there are coordination impairments of 31 to 38. And then there's also numbers connected to prosthesis or equivalent, and they are 40 to 47. And then you've got the wheelchair races and the seated throws. Now they're F.
Yeah, they kind of share the 50s. So 51 to 54 for T is wheelchair, and 51 to 58 for F is the seated throws.
And then 61 to 64 is lower limb competing with prosthesis.
And if you need to hear that again, just rewind a minute.
You might want to watch that over again. But I think it's interesting of the different classifications so that you can see the different races.
What I loved around 2012 was this is when there's a TV show in the UK on Channel 4 called The Last Leg, and they essentially covered the Paralympics, but in this alternative way, this incredibly accessible alternative and funny way. And the big thing for me that I found about it, because I think as we're going through the classifications there, you're quite worried. I'm quite worried that like you might say the wrong thing or not quite understand it. And I think that the biggest thing that The Last Leg's done for Paralympic sport, for example, is they always had a segment called "Is It Okay?" And it was like quite close to the mark, a lot of it, but it's like, is it okay to say this or to ask this question or whatever it might be? And through doing that in the last 10 or 12 years,
it is okay.
Yeah. And they've had, it's hosted by a host with a prosthetic foot. It's an incredibly inclusive show. And I think that doing things like that, like asking, is it okay? And like laughing at stuff that maybe people might worry, are you allowed to laugh at that stuff?
Yeah.
That's done. So if you imagine combining that with the power of a sold out stadium of 80 or 90,000 people and all of the TV coverage and stuff. I know we've got a question to talk about later where the power that has on parents and families at home who are watching and who then their children or teenagers aspire to then compete in the Paralympics.
I think there's one kind of, if you're watching it, just to add on to what Andy was saying there's one kind of sentence which kind of helped me understand this a little bit better when it comes to those classifications, how you talk about it. So the number, when you hear a number on the TV or the radio, also represents the level of impairment. The lower the number with each impairment type, the more severe it is.
Okay.
Which I think that probably helps.
Yeah, and there's always been, I always remember a lot of chat about, there was always a big focus on the blades. So the lower limb prosthesis that people might wear if they have, had a leg amputated or been born with a lower limb disability. So then they need a blade to compete. And whether there was always a chat about whether that had an advantage, like conferred an advantage versus not having that disability in the first place, which seems crazy. But obviously these blades, a little bit like super shoes, give you this kind of extra energy return. And actually a lot of the, I don't know for sure, but a lot of the jumpers will use if they have a single leg prosthesis, they'll use their blade to take as their takeoff foot.
Oh, really?
That's my understanding.
Oh, really? We were chatting yesterday because there is one brand that I've been to their headquarters and I've seen blades, but you could wear them whether you needed a prosthesis or you didn't. And that it's interesting to think of like that technology you're not going to see in the Olympics because that definitely, if you're only allowed a 40 mil stack height, that's probably going to be even faster. But it's interesting to look at like we were looking at the 100 meter records yesterday, and I think it's like 10.54 is the 100 meter record versus, can't remember the
9.58.
Yeah, so like really close.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. And I love the element of technology there as well. Like obviously you want fairness, but at the same time, the benefits and development of technology in the last that have come. It's come from all different areas, Formula One for materials and all that sort of stuff. That's then filtered down to allow these athletes to, like you say, running 10.5.
Yeah.
For someone with one or two leg prosthesis is an absolutely amazing thing. Like not too surprising. None of us can get near that.
No. Well, but what was it? But 20% of the UK think that they could be in the next games.
Olympics,
one podcast that you should definitely go and listen back to if you haven't already is the TRC Meets episode that we did with Ant Bryan, because he talked a little bit about the Paralympics. He volunteered at the London Paralympics in 2012, and he just said, like you said earlier, the atmosphere there was incredible. And he was talking to another volunteer, and he was like, well, I've volunteered at both and this seems even louder than before. And they were like, well, yeah, because the kind of adversity that you have to face just to get into the stadium,
just get on the start line,
is incredible. And like you just feel that atmosphere.
And there's an amazing reward for these athletes as well. So a lovely little story is that each medal contains a piece of original iron from the Eiffel Tower, which I think is pretty cool. But the medals also have distinct engravings and universal braille on them, so to allow the para athletes to distinguish the medals by touch.
So it was a spare bit of iron from the Eiffel Tower. They didn't chip a bit out the bottom.
Yeah, I've thought that as well. Are they just going to be like ripping out random sections of the Eiffel Tower?
Yeah, exactly.
Or have they just got the same material?
Let's hope not. I can't wait. I just wish we were back there again.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Amazing time. So,
although not that train ride back. That was pretty bleak.
Well, it was
just
you
me and
who
you
just...
sat next to each other staring into the distance.
Yeah, one person went to bed at midnight, the other went to bed at 4 a.m. Guesses as to who did what.
Okay, moving on. Yeah.
Right, it's time for news, and then we will move on to your questions. Okay, so starting off with some Paralympic news.
Yeah.
This one shocked me. Athletes can get banned from the Paralympics if they have an Olympic tattoo.
Or Paralympic tattoo, yeah.
Hang on. So they can get banned from the Paralympics if they have a Paralympic or Olympic tattoo.
Yeah.
But there are so many athletes in the Olympic Games who had Olympic tattoos.
Yeah, different rules, totally different organising committees and so on, I think. So it's double standards essentially. But yeah, you'll have seen mainly, I suppose, it's more visible for the swimmers because the men have got their tops off.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see their quite prominent Olympic ring tattoos on a lot of athletes.
Yeah.
And there's no sanctions there. You would get sanctioned or disqualified if you had a tattoo that was considered, I suppose, political. I'm not sure about that one, but definitely if you had like a brand tattooed on you, then you'd have to cover that up. Like it's a pretty extreme lengths to go to for sponsorship. That's just something that you wouldn't think about. Yeah, but some people would just like not do that for, not even like for sponsorship. You might just get like your favourite fast food chain restaurant just tattooed on your chest. Yeah,
and then
get disqualified.
And then you turn into an Olympian and you're like, oh, can't do this.
Well, you'd have to wear a plaster or something over it. So in the Paralympics, if you had the rings or Paralympic rings, the symbols tattooed on you, and don't cover them up, then you will get disqualified. It's a very different and much stricter set of rules. Yeah,
I just think,
seems a bit unnecessary to me.
Yeah, I just think that's unnecessary. What's your news story, Rick?
I was going to talk about Spencer Matthews. Obviously, he's done this amazing run, which has been through the Jordanian desert, where he did 30 marathons in 30 days, covering 786 miles. Amazing how I've remembered this.
All on sand, right?
All on sand, 45 degrees. And he was doing it for the charity Make Some Noise. It was across, very tricky, tough conditions. I just want to talk about this on kind of two levels. I think what he's done is absolutely phenomenal, and we've seen some incredible feats when it comes to people doing runs. We've seen hardest geezer across Africa. We've seen, people doing multiple marathons, and we see this more and more often nowadays. And I think it's great, and it's for charity. It's dead important. I'm really pleased that people are making money for charity for it. But then I think sometimes it can make normal runners feel like what they're doing, if they're just doing a couch to 5K or they're running their first ever kilometre and they've not done anything, sometimes a bit reluctant to share their story that they've done something small. When we were at a big event that we put on a few weeks ago, someone came up to me, one of the guests, and who was supporting there, said, I've just done my first 1K. It's no big deal, isn't it, when you hear about these people running across countries and stuff? Yeah. And I was like, well, you know what? Everyone's big deal is your own big deal on how you achieve that. And I think when you hear about these incredible feats that are going on at the moment, sometimes you can think, well, actually, I don't need to talk about mine. Well, actually, your big deal is still a big deal.
100%.
Yeah, I think sometimes people are so tempted to just discount the milestones because what they perceive to be the like pinnacle of what they're aiming for, like they're not quite there. I'm definitely guilty of that, where I'm like, oh, well, I need to run this because I want to run this time or I want to run this distance. So I'm not even care. I just need to get through this. But no, like celebrate the fact that for you, like us, Andy aside, me and Rick aren't running in a Paris 2024 games anytime soon. So like for us, the best that we're doing is the best that we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's like a huge achievement in itself.
Yeah, and I think remember that those extremes that you see in the news have to be exactly that. Because so many people do run marathons now, people have, in order to raise staggering amounts of money when these people are raising millions of pounds, whatever it might be, then that challenge has to be more extreme in order for the news to kind of care about it. Like so that doesn't affect normal people doing incredible normal things. I think I would like to thank them out there in the desert for normalizing taking their shirt off on a run. Obviously, I felt bad about that in Paris. So, I mean, they're in the desert. There's no one looking,
I don't think they packed t-shirts.
No, I don't think so.
From the pictures that I've seen.
Yeah.
But no, incredible. They've like obviously faced loads of challenges out there, and one of them has been GPS. So when you're doing a world record attempt,
you have to prove it.
The proving it is actually really difficult. So they've all had like a number of different watches on. Sometimes they've turned up and they just haven't been able to get a GPS signal because you're in the desert, because there's been interference from other things.
I can't get my GPS to work in Camden Town. So.
But so there was one marathon where they had to do, I think, like 3 kilometer loops. And I think that's like, that just shows how when you're like 26 marathons in and you've just got to do 3K loops, like that
was me drawing my face this week.
yeah, I don't think they paused it to draw the iris.
Right, fun times.
Let's do some questions.
Just before we start the questions, I just want to mention about bears. Now, we talk a lot about bears, and I get a lot of abuse about bears on this podcast.
Yeah.
But obviously, we've mentioned grizzly bears in Canada and black bears in Canada, and a lot of Canadians keep emailing Owen and me, our producer, about these facts.
Yeah.
And just, where those bears might be. I'm sorry if sometimes we've not, placed those bears in exactly the right provinces.
Are we on Bear Watch?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God,
British Columbia.
are people emailing in because you've got it wrong?
No, well, not wrong,
Again.
just haven't quite covered it correctly.
I think
British Columbia has half of Canada's grizzly bears.
Right.
If you're going running in a remote part of British Columbia, wear bear spray.
You're listening to the Canadian Bear Spotting podcast.
Yeah.
If you're bored of the bear chat, then rest assured that no one will be listening to this podcast for bear advice.
I'm bored of it.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
okay,
Thanks for bearing with us.
But black bears everywhere.
I'm definitely cool enough to use
right.
bear in the kind of sense.
Anyway,
No. But it's all right. Rick clawed his way through.
There are no bears in London, and Harry has written in from there. I love the podcast and listened extensively during my training block for the London Marathon. It's been great to hear the varying inspirational stories and scientific-based information. Wink, wink.
Scientific-based information.
I've got a question about my daughter. She turned 4 last week and competed her first junior park run 4 days later. I need to get round to taking Elizabeth on a junior park run.
She's not 4 yet, is she?
She's 4, yeah.
Oh, she just turned 4?
Yeah, I need to do that. She did an incredible job by walking with short bursts of running, but she was incredibly disappointed when she saw how slow, this is her perception, I guess, after she watched the Olympic Games. What's the best way to motivate someone this young? She thought she was slow, essentially. She finished in just over 25 minutes. Super proud of her. Thank you very much. Harry from London.
How far is a junior park run?
It's 2K,
2K,
yeah.
2K.
So I think she's done a great job there. I mean, my kids that I've taken to junior park when are a little bit older, and even they still sprint the first 100 meters and then walk a bit. And the more, it's because I'm their dad, like they don't listen to me. So the more I'm like, just pace yourself. They're like, no. So,
I will run.
Exactly.
So kids are just exactly the same as adults then, just sprint off.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're idiots, basically.
Yeah.
I think
in the nicest possible way. So yeah, I don't know how. I think that you can motivate them with the classic little kid stuff, high fives on the way. The video is difficult because obviously they shouldn't be comparing themselves to the Olympics.
Or just film them in the first 10 meters when they are sprinting.
Yeah, exactly.
And then be
So
like, this was at the end.
That was a good idea.
Film the fastest bit. And yeah, just like try and get them to run on a downhill and sort of let themselves go and feel that slightly faster feeling and stuff like that. But
also, I think it's good to learn at like the age of 4 that it's like a process.
Yeah.
So like the main thing is that you enjoy it, but then if they are like competitive and they want to get faster, then just be like, okay, why don't you alternate each week? Like one week you're going to have fun, the next week, okay, try and see if you can get a little bit faster, or try and see if you can not walk when you hit this tree. Yeah.
And I think it's just knowing that a 4-year-old's motivation will definitely wane. And so if they don't want to go, don't. I wouldn't say. I wouldn't
25
say force them,
minutes
don't ruin the fun.
Yeah. 25 minutes of concentration for a Concentration is very impressive.
Yeah. I don't think I could Rick to concentrate for 25 minutes.
Absolutely no chance.
That's why the podcast is 30 minutes, because Rick's waning.
It's never 30 minutes anymore.
I know. 31, 27.
I've succumbed to pressure.
29.
Yeah.
30.
Yeah. I've succumbed. Chris from Dublin. Hi,
Hello.
Andy, Sarah and Rick. My athletics club, Badley AC, that's MUN, have been super helpful and inclusive of my daughter Ella, who was born with a brain injury. She loves running, and being able to run with her and give her the sense of freedom is such an unbelievable gift. I just wanted to give a shout out to the amazing people from my club who run with her and myself. They've also been amazing with helping me train for the Dublin Marathon that's in October, where we will both be running.
Oh,
yeah, and Chris sent in a really lovely picture as well, which was an amazing thing to see.
Dublin Marathon, that is on my bucket list.
So yeah, big shout out to Ballymun AC. You guys are absolute legends. And I think actually you're representative of the amazing runners all over the world, all of the clubs, all of the people that don't get shouted out as heroes for just showing up in the rain every week to help people to have a better experience running and all that sort of stuff. We love you. So well done.
Yeah, what a lovely way to finish.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Sarah, have you got a favour for us?
You'll be pleased to know that voting is closed for the British Podcast Awards, so you can't do that anymore. But please do keep emailing in with your questions, especially a little debate, because I feel like later in the year we need to get some more debate episodes going on. So do you want to know what's an acceptable sock length to wear when you're running? Should Andy take his top off when he goes out for a run?
Or a few would you rather, send those in.
Oh yeah, would you rathers? Yeah. Or just interesting questions that might be hard to find the answer to on Google. I had a great one the other day in my Instagram DMs of, before a race, should you, or in the lead up, should you be drinking carbs and drinking electrolytes, or does one do both? Like little questions like that, which you might not know the answer to.
Yeah, we can get Rick to research the science.
Yeah.
And then we'll actually give you the science.
Yeah. Let's just see what happens.
All right. We'll see you next time. Bye.